Hi, my name is Tim Robinson. In this video, you will learn how to center a piece of clay on the wheel. To center the clay, you basically got to get it so that all the clay is in the exact center of the bat and that it is all moving symmetrically and perfectly. So you shouldn't be able to see it wobbling around like it is right now. It should be moving as though it's just a perfect oval with no no dentures on the outside. I don't know how to, no dents or incongruities. So you gotta get the clay nice and wet, because you can't have a lot of friction or it doesn't work. And elbows and your stance are actually really important, I find. Because if you wanna show them where my elbows are, I don't know if they can see. Yeah. I like to keep my elbows on my knees. It's very important that you keep them on your knees and close to your body. Out here, you have less stability. You have less control of the clay. The more centered and sort of compact you are, the more grounded you are. You can keep both your feet on the ground at all times. The less your hands will move and the faster you will get centered. So I'm going to start off by, I guess basically I'm trying to hold my palm as like a solid axis for the clay to hit. And if you see my hand, my palm's moving all over the place, which means the clay is not centered and that there's not a single axis in the center of it, and that clay is thicker in certain places than it is in other places. So we want the clay to be perfectly symmetric with an axis that is the same as the axis of the wheel. So often you get a hand on the side and a hand on the top. It's important to keep contact between your two hands because it helps them stabilize. I don't know, really. When I have one hand down here, I always have another hand in contact with that hand, and they work together better that way. One technique is to actually, I don't know what it's called, but you make a sort of dome-shaped, spirally cone, actually. And you can use either your palm to do this, or you can take a sponge and use the sponge to do it. I think it's a little more, it looks like a little clearer if you do it with a sponge. So if I take a sponge, I come over here. If I wanted to make this into a more cone shaped and bring up the walls, I'd increase the pressure on my right hand and just start slowly moving up, trying to keep my fingers as steady as possible. And we have a slight cone shape. This will bring clay that's on the outside towards the inside, and it'll bring clay that's on the bottom and on this, in the center of the cone to the outside. This means that by the time, once you've done this a couple times, you've actually turned the clay inside out on itself a couple times, and you've actually touched all the clay on the wheel and not just the outside layer or edge, I guess. So once you bring it up, you can push it back down really easily, just going over the top, squeezing it back down. Like using the sponge, you can use a rib tool to do this. Often using a rib tool will draw clay off of your mound. You'll end up with something like that. And that's sometimes what you want, sometimes not. I guess to know that your clay is centered, it should, like I said, be equal. The axis of your clay should be perfectly in line with the axis of the wheel. So everything should be symmetric to that one point right there. And that means nothing's going to move. That means you can spin this and your hands will sit there and it'll almost feel as though the clay is not moving beneath your hands because you can't feel any bumps or incongruities. Another way to test it is to take your sponge and kind of clean up the sides, get all the slip off the sides. And then you can use your finger, or you can actually even see right now the lines that the sponge makes make a circle. And if that's a perfect circle and not an oval, then you know you are very close to being centered. It's important to get centered before you start bringing up the walls or making an indent or a shape, because if you start to bring up the walls and the clay is uneven, the walls will come up uneven and you'll have one wall that is taller or thicker than all the other walls. So I'm pretty much centered here, and the most exciting part of this video has come.